Hello, everybody. My name is Shalini Behel, and I'm an entrepreneur, a consultant, and an educator promoting mindfulness and technology for positive change. Today, we're here today. I'm very excited because we're launching the first of our guest speaker series for my social media strategy class at the Eisenberg School of Management. And we're going to be, and I have one student here, so thank you for taking out time to be here. And the others will probably see it recorded later. The topic for today is work-life merge on social media. And as many of you know, there's we're all working in a fast-paced society, and social media certainly doesn't help. At the same time, social media is such a powerful tool for engaging and reaching out to your stakeholders that we just cannot avoid it. So we're going to talk about a lot of issues that come with this territory, and we have an amazing guest speaker today, Judy Martin, who is an Emmy Award-winning broadcast journalist. She is a work stress management consultant and the creator of what is it? Work-Life
Nation.com.
Yes, worklifenation.com.
Yeah.
And she's an amazing and such an accomplished person that I really admire, and I'm so excited to have this opportunity to learn from her. So let us welcome Judy Martin. Thank you so much for taking out time to be here with us.
Oh, it's my pleasure, Shalini. I admire your work as well, so it's a mutual admiration society here.
Thank you. So maybe we can start off with just a general question about your work. What is it you do, and how does social media fit into that?
Well, primarily, I am a walking paradox, and I think that a lot of us are, a lot of us entrepreneurs out there are these days. We might have one or two skills. We may have been in corporate America. I've been in journalism for 25 years in broadcast journalism, and then I started tracking into this work-life realm and tracking work-life issues, workplace issues, and around the time of 9/11, I experienced a loss at that time and also had to work at the same time, and really was able to witness what was going on in New York City, and in fact probably across the globe. Really, people had to work and also deal with their emotions about what had occurred. And as technology has exponentially grown, I call it the time of digital exuberance, kind of stealing from Alan Greenspan's irrational exuberance in the 1990s. Everyone got into the tech companies, and then the bubble burst. Well, now everyone in the time of digital exuberance is into technology, and they're bound to crash eventually if they don't manage it well. So what happened during 9/11 is I saw this coming, this time of digital exuberance, and became really interested in what was happening in the social media. And I guess at that time it was just the internet. It was new, right? And I started studying about that more and more. And as a broadcast journalist, as I covered it, I saw the need for blogging. So in 2006, I started blogging on these issues. Eventually, it became worklifenation.com. During this entire expanse, especially during 9/11, I incorporated a lot of the things that I had learned through yoga, meditation, work-life initiatives, employee assistance programs to help not only myself, but others, because we were all grieving at that time. So more and more, I saw that my work-life merge became, how do I deal as a news reporter over the years? Since technology is expanding, we have news in real time, get my work done at the same time, and also manage my life. So that's how I kind of came into this whole game. I have a little bit of feedback, Shalini. If you can lower maybe the audio on, just a little bit more.
Is that
that's
better?
Great. Yeah, a little bit. It's fine. We'll manage. So that's how I kind of came to this point of becoming a stress management consultant and started teaching others what I had learned over the last 15 years. I've been in war zones. I was in Kosovo. I've dealt with plane crashes.
Hmm.
hurricanes. So I really learned to take these tools that I had learned to kind of calm down and also
Hmm.
work at the same time. Now, all of a sudden, on comes this social media gig, and
Right.
it's important to connect with other people. So, the way social media fits in now is as of 2006, I began blogging, and
Uh-huh.
then media just exploded, technology exploded, and you start bringing in just about everything. So at this point in my life, I'm very well trained to not only take the downtime, but decide what social media is okay for me to use and decide what just distracts me as I work it into my work life merge. So I hope that makes some sense. I'm
Oh
trying to give you a little
yeah.
history and how it
Yeah.
all came to be. So
That's
social media
great.
right now is the vehicle for my business,
Hmm.
primarily, I would say, and referrals, social media and referrals, the interaction, the communication with people. It's not, to me, the marketing is not about e-blasting people every 2 seconds. It's about the relationships that you form with people. And as you work with people, you get referrals. That's my lens. So,
Right. So, how do you go about choosing who to connect with and what channels to use? And there's just so much of information out there.
yeah.
So, do you have like a strategy or a plan? How do you go about doing that?
I think it's trial by error. But if I
Okay.
go back to the beginning, it was, oh, wow, there's a new app. Let me take a look at this new app. And oh, there's a new
Okay.
program. Oh, and so, this person's all of a sudden there's content marketing.
Right.
Wow, content marketing. That totally fits in with me because I'm a writer. So I
Mm.
can write about the topics that people would be interested in and generate conversations. But with that, as you communicate, more and more apps, more and more social media channels come in.
Right.
And uh, I think depending on what your business is, you have to choose which channels are best to, and I'm not going to say just reach your audience, but to communicate and engage your
Hmm.
audience in an authentic way. And I know that you're really big on that, Shalina, and
Right.
you certainly teach that because I think that moving forward, it's not going to be about, as I said, the e-blasts. It's going to be more about what Chris Brogan talks about in his book Trust Agents, um, in creating those authentic conversations and getting business from that if it comes. So.
Mm. Right. Well, yeah, I certainly feel it's a very organic process, even for me when
Mm,
I was making a transition from being a full-time professor on a tenure track to becoming a marketing social media consultant. It seemed
mm,
like social media was something I had to go and study, and as I was trying to reach out to my target audience, which I found was many women who were recreating their careers and didn't
mm,
know how to use social media.
yeah.
So I said, okay, here are some people I can actually start helping right away. So the workshops that I was creating became the content for my blogs.
Hmm.
And then the material, the discussions in the workshops became the material we had in discussions in our private groups on Facebook. And so as I started expanding to more corporate clients, I moved over to LinkedIn. So it does feel like a kind of a very organic process. And if we can sort of stay open to what's possible, we can sort of start shifting, changing, choosing what really works. And at
I
the
think
same
it's.
time,
Hmm.
yeah, sorry, go
No,
ahead.
no, go on. I want. I sometimes there's a delay, so I can't see that you started to speak. Go on, please.
So, and at the same time, when I first started, I was totally seduced into it,
Hmm. Oh yeah.
and like felt completely burnt out after a certain point. I mean, there was that Twitter feed, and I was like, and blogging, and you're getting comments, and I'm used to writing academic articles that get have a turnaround of 3 years, and here you write a blog, and there are 10 people who are, and you're like, oh my God, I'm so
Yeah.
cool, and so I
Um,
was. I was all the time just tweeting and totally felt burnt out at the end.
mhm.
So I'm just wondering if, other than a strategy, are there any tools or technology
Oh,
that you
sure.
use?
There's a lot of tools and technology. Again, it's choosing what's good for you. I'm going to give you. I can tell you how I work,
Uh-huh.
and maybe you can glean some guidance from that. There are just so many automative automated tools that you can use right now. And
Mm.
what I mean by that, and you know this, maybe for people who are listening, is a tool like Hootsuite, for example,
Mm.
or Social News Desk, right?
Yes.
Where you can schedule blog posts or tweets, information from other people, other people's blog posts at certain times. And you can do that to a degree. But I think through not only trial and error, but what I've learned from other marketing people is you don't want to do that too much because
Mm.
there's a huge downside to that. The biggest
Mm.
downside is that you're not working in the real time of the product. The product is a real time tool, and that means that you engage in that tool. So if you want to
Mm.
get, say, maybe 10 posts out or 10 tweets out over a 24-hour period, or 5 to 10 tweets, or 5 to 10 Facebook posts, maybe. And
Mm.
people would have different opinions about these numbers.
Mm.
Automated, this is solid information. To me, it's somewhat okay.
Mm.
However, if people start responding to that and you're not responding to them, then you're not being in the moment with them in real time and being able to engage authentically. So I do that to a degree because there's information that I want to share with people within my niche.
Mm.
Focus very much on work stress. And so I'm going to talk about mindfulness meditation. I'm going to talk about yoga. I'm going to talk about ergonomics,
Mm.
positive psychology, emotional, I mean, everything, emotional IQ. So I want to share that information and they enjoy that sharing. If I interact with someone, it's generally on a Twitter chat. I'm a huge
Mm.
fan of talent culture. And I was with Talent Culture, which runs on Wednesday evenings from 7 to 8, and they have a
Mm.
radio show on Blog Talk Radio that comes before that. They're one of the top Twitter chats probably on the planet, and I was in from day one with them, engaged with them, and I've made great friends. And
Mm.
I know when certain buddies of mine are going to be on Twitter. So if there's a Twitter chat that's about primarily talent and technology, which falls right within my realm, I'll contribute to that or participate if I can.
Mm.
And then I might find another point of the day, depending on what week it is, where I will engage online. Maybe there's a news conference going on, or maybe there's another Twitter chat, maybe there's any other kind of conference, and I see a
Mm.
hashtag running. I want to be involved in that conversation. That's the opportunity for the real time and authentic engagement. So you
Right.
can pick and choose. Um, I think on Facebook it's a little different. You have a little bit more leeway. You have a little bit more lead time on that on Facebook.
Mhm.
Generally, what they say is a tweet. I'm trying to think of what the shelf life of a tweet is, but I'm pretty sure it's shorter than Facebook, if I'm not
Oh
mistaken.
yeah.
Yeah, so it's
Yeah,
like boom
definitely.
in the moment. One of the big things that we are facing, and this is exponentially growing, is technology in real time.
Mm.
Prince Rania of Jordan said at the Web conference, I think it was back maybe in 2009, I want to say, that prime time is the new real time, or real time is
Mm.
the new prime time.
Real time,
So,
right.
right. So, things happen in real time, and how much can you engage? The downside to that is,
Mm.
yes, you can engage with Queen Rania if you're on Twitter at the right time. The downside to the real time is you might miss something. But
Mm.
here's the thing, we can't be there for everything.
Right.
And we're so attached to the outcome instead of the process. And I hate to, be
Mm.
so cliche and say, hey, it's the journey, not the destination. But it really is, because the bottom line is that you will burn yourself out. Over the last couple of days, I had a conversation with a couple of my friends. I have definitely been on the road to burnout. I'll be the first one to admit it. And I meditate in the morning. I got
Yeah.
up this morning. I make my bed very mindfully. I sit down. I'm very, very calculating in the morning. It sets the pace for the day. And it also sets
Mm.
the pace for my social media. When I get up and I look at the computer, um, I just glance at it and I walk away.
Mm.
I'm very, very careful about how I begin with my day with the computer. And in fact, when I go to bed at night, before I go to bed, everything goes off. Every
Nice.
monitor, Every
Uh-huh.
plug, I have a bunch of big, plugs. Obviously, lights are plugged into audio
Huh.
systems. Everything goes black because that kind of
Wow.
sets the mind on downtime. Yep, everything goes
Right.
black. And that's a ritual for me. And I think that what we're missing in this whole craziness of social media is the ritual of the human interaction, but being human beings as we interact. So we've gotten away from the very thing that we're trying to propagate, which is really that human interaction. If we're
Mm.
not breathing and we're not taking a chill, then we're not being authentic. We're rushing, rushing, rushing. So this week, I definitely had a week like that. I've got some deadlines. I'm working on a book proposal. It's been a little crazy. And I took a step back and I spoke with, my check-in buddies who both do stress management, and we're all meditators. And she sent me something this morning, and it was Billy Joel. Do you know Billy Joel, the musician? He has a
Yes.
song that's called Vienna. And I'll sing a little for you. The lyrics, slow
Uh-huh.
down, you crazy child. You're too ambitious for a juvenile. And basically, what he goes on to say is that
Mm.
if you're rushing around, you're going to burn out. That's the whole premise of the song. In Europe,
Right.
he calls it Vienna. In Europe, they value that older age as you get older and you become more
Mm.
mature and you slow down and calm down. And they value the young time. They also value the time as a youngster where you're very ambitious and you want to do everything. But it doesn't mean
Right.
you have to get everything done because eventually you
Right.
will get to that point of maturity and calm as you get older and you gain wisdom and you look back and you
Right.
say, gosh, I mean, did I smell the roses along the way? And we're
Mm-hmm.
back in that very same place right now. And technology is making it a lot tougher to smell the roses as we go along. It's the whole,
Absolutely.
the whole FOMA thing, fear of missing out, right? Ariana
Mm-hmm.
Huffington's talking about this like crazy about the third metric, and I was actually at her
Right.
conference a couple of months ago.
Uh-huh.
So anyway, I could go on and on about this. So
Oh no, I think you really
um,
raised an excellent point about creating a ritual around how we use technology very
yeah,
mindfully. And what I heard you say is in the morning, you start very mindfully
yeah,
by not turning on your computer and so forth, and you take your time for yourself, for self-care, meditation, whatever it is
hmm
that is meaningful to you, that self-time, and
hmm
then move, and that sets the pace for the day and at night as well. Because I know many people are still tweeting, including me sometimes. And so
Mm.
that's really requires a lot of, I think, discipline and um, awareness to
It's
know.
that's it. It's the awareness. That's it.
Right.
Mm,
So I think you raised some really very, very powerful point, and they're very simple and obvious maybe points, but we really need to be reminded about how to use this technology to your advantage and so it doesn't
mm,
take over your life. And so would you say like you have, what would your typical day be? Like, do you use social media at certain
mhm.
times in the
I
day,
do.
or
Certain
so
times,
what is
certain
your
weeks,
schedule like?
certain days. Um, it's all about leveraging. And we're leveraging, I call it that, a lot of people are using this phrase, but it's a technology paradox. So,
Mm,
how do you use technology? The same cell phone
right, right.
can let you know that your child is in the office sick and you have to go pick her up, and the same cell phone on the weekend is going to ring and it's going to be your boss telling you that they need some
Right.
paper by 7 a.m. on Monday morning. So how do
Mm,
we leverage that technology? So I think it's a very individual process,
mm,
and my schedule is different every week and it's
mm,
different every weekend. But what I do is generally on Sunday nights, I sit down and I take a look at the week. Generally, I look even 2 weeks out because there might be some weeks where I don't get on LinkedIn very much, and I
mm,
actually need to be there a little bit more, but then I'm tweeting more. It depends on what's going on. So, for example, if I have a couple of Twitter chats, those are hours. If I can make them, if I'm not doing news, if I'm not, on deadline from a story, I will make those Twitter chats and I'll make them a priority in my calendar. If there's a meeting or a conference, and there's always some kind of meeting or conference or Google Hangout, those get scheduled as well. So
Mhm.
those are two biggies. If I'm working on a really big assignment, which I am right now, I've got book proposal that gets scheduled. So all the main things that I would consider priorities get scheduled first. Then I
Mhm.
take a step back and I say, okay, where do I have time twice a week for LinkedIn? That's what I do. I check
Mhm.
LinkedIn twice a week. I try not to get sucked into it because
Mhm.
LinkedIn is very easy to get sucked into because there's more content there, I think.
Mhm. Mhm.
Especially with all the articles that they have now, there's more
Right.
content that might be relevant to your business. But do
Mhm.
people interact as much on LinkedIn? I don't know. I don't know that I see that. I
Yeah,
feel
in
like it's a little
groups.
bit more, yeah, on the groups, definitely in the
Yeah.
LinkedIn groups. I have 3 LinkedIn groups that I check religiously.
Mhm.
And I'm very careful about who I interact with there, and I try to do polls, even create polls, answer polls, because that's some good interaction.
Mhm.
Um, so that's about twice a week, and I schedule that after most of the other stuff is prioritized. Every morning, though, I do check in on Twitter, and I also check with my Google feed. I have
Oh.
Google alerts for work
Oh.
stress, for
Right.
mindfulness, for
Mhm.
meditation, and I have my alerts on once a day. And I have them come when I know that they're coming in on that once a day time.
Mhm.
They're all in one place in my inbox, and I zip through them. I know which stories I want to get out to my audience. So I'll go onto Twitter and say, hey, there's this new study on work stress,
Mhm.
and check it out. What do you think about? I'll read it, check it out. What do you think about this? So I'll might post something on Twitter and then on Facebook. Throughout I'll post maybe 2 or 3 on each one, different stories. Then
Right.
I take a step back from that. I will check
Mhm.
it though, maybe at lunchtime. I'll check it later on in the day, just to see if anyone's reacting or responding to those posts. But what I won't do is get on it and then go into the zone. you know,
Uh-huh.
the zone is everyone has an opportunity to get into that place where you just get sucked into whatever you're doing. And I'm very
Right.
careful about using that zone time and that focus and concentration time for something that I'm being creative with. For example, writing a book proposal, working on an
Right.
article. That's when I want to be completely focused and have all my attention. So I give
Right.
myself a limit. I have a little post-it, actually, it's funny, that I put on my computer that says breathe. Or
Wow.
sometimes I'll put up no Facebook today,
Mhm.
no Twitter today. I'll do things like that in the morning depending on what the priority is. um,
Right.
I will schedule my day the night before. I'll take a look at what my schedule is,
Mhm.
and okay, this is the time when I'll do it. Now, randomly, I will check Facebook and Twitter because someone sent me a link and said, "Hey, check out this article. It might have something to do with what I'm working on that day." But most
Mhm.
of the time, I will turn off everything else and
Right.
tune it out, in other words, because I
Uh-huh.
find it to be a distraction. I mean, don't you find that when you get
Right.
into Twitter or Facebook, then it's all over, right?
Oh yes, game
Oh, look
over,
at that. Wait, I gotta
definitely.
look at that. Part of this is also taking a step back and deciding what's important to you
Mm.
and not buying into the need for speed, the need
Mhm.
to be heard, the need for speed, and the need to do everything yesterday. We're
Mm.
we're so concerned about being first, and I understand that it's a competitive marketplace. I get it, but if you're in that mindset, then you're in a state of fear.
Mm.
And I'm not going to get into like the whole woo-woo thing of the secret and what have you, but right, when your body is in a
Mm.
state of fear, your breathing accelerates, your blood
Right.
pressure goes up, you're
Right.
releasing different hormones in your brain, endorphins, and then the stress hormone cortisol. And what does that do? It just shuts you down. It gets you running for a little bit to a degree, but eventually it kind of makes you cower and you're not as
Mm.
productive. You're
Mhm.
just not. That's all there is to it. So, and there is,
Right.
I'm not totally putting down stress. There's different kinds of stress. There's
Sure.
stress, which is the more positive, the motivational
Right.
stress. You can take it to a degree, but when it goes in the other direction, then you're just
Right.
falling off the train there. The train's going off the tracks. So.
Absolutely. No, that's, I just want to pick up on one of the things you just said about
Hmm.
the stress that's created with constantly being engaged on
Hmm.
technology. And I think it was Dr. Hallman who, what's his name? Hallowell
Hmm.
in Harvard Business Review, and he wrote about this new problem that's emerging called attention deficit trait. So it's not
Hmm.
attention deficit disorder, which is a
Disorder.
medical condition, but
Yeah.
this is attention deficit trait. And the more we're getting caught up in multitasking and emails and Facebook and Twitter and whatnot, we're losing the ability to really stay focused.
Hmm.
So I think it requires a lot of awareness to break this habit of being sucked into it. And the brain kind of records what's uh, enjoyable. And
Hmm.
definitely checking out Facebook is more enjoyable than working on my book proposal. So
Yeah.
on autopilot,
Yeah.
we're naturally going to want to go, as soon as we start doing something, and then like, oh, what did that person say? And you want to go and check in. So I think what you're proposing to turn off everything, which is what I do as well when I'm working on focus projects, is turn off
Hmm.
all social media and maybe give myself a reward every time there's an impulse. Like, let me just quickly
Hmm.
check that, and I'll say, okay, once I'm done with this task, which is generally half an hour to 1 hour, then I can, as a
Hmm.
reward, go and check in. So this is for people who are obsessive like me. So definitely you can, create a schedule for yourself that works for you, knowing your own personality,
Yeah.
how to navigate this great wide ocean of information and people. So one of the things that I really struggle with is I have so much to say and write and talk about, and you are a Huffington Post contributor. Your website was the top 100 career sites on Forbes
Forbes. Hmm.
magazine. So how do you create time? And I especially promote blogging
Hmm.
a lot to people who have something powerful to say, because you know there are all these companies like Coke and Pepsi, and they have tons of money to go out and take over everyone's brains and minds, and the real people who have something valuable to say are kind of
Mm,
doing their thing. So one way to bring this information and education inspiration is through blogging.
mm,
So how do you create time for blogging, and do you have a schedule for that, and how
mm.
often do you blog, and then you blogging in so many different places, so what is
It's
the
all an
process
illusion,
like?
Shalini. Well,
Ah!
no, it's not. That's not true. Um, you know, um, I've been struggling. Actually, this is my struggle this week. I was talking to my girlfriend about this, and
Yeah.
that's when she sent me the Vienna song, the Billy Joel Vienna song. You're gonna
uh,
burn out. Um, what I do, this might be different for different people, but I want to say this about blogging. It's good to blog at least once a week. If
okay.
you want to generate an audience and you would like to spread a message and you have a voice that needs to be heard, consistency is number one.
Mm.
That being said, am I consistent? Well, sometimes. Is sometimes okay? I don't know. I try to blog at least once a week. But what I did do on my blog site, now I have many people who always want to guest post. And I'm
Mm.
very careful with guest posting because I think it's important that I stay on message. And I
Mm.
recently just made my sister one of my guest bloggers, and she blogs
Mm.
every Wednesday,
Uh-huh.
regardless. She has a 3 year old. She works from home. She's got a PhD in
Mm.
linguistics. She's brilliant, and she's a really good writer. So I
Mm.
know I actually created a hole for her, and it's perfectly on message with what I do. And she's really big on neuropsychology, so it's great.
Mm.
So she blogs every Wednesday, period. So I have that covered. So I know
Mm.
then one other day a week, at least at Work Life Nation, I want to do a post. Generally, what I do is I choose a news story, a study, or I'll do a Google Hangout. That will be the other post for that week. Are there weeks that go by where I don't have a post? Yes, that's possible. Generally, when that happens, it's because I'm either focused on one of the 4 places: Huffington
Mm.
Post, Daily Muse, Dr. Oz's sharecare.com,
Mm.
or what was the Forbes or Forbes.
Forbes. Mm-hmm.
Um, so if I have a week where, okay, I got my Work Life Nation piece out of the way, what's the next big news story? That generally
Mm.
goes to a Forbes. If I
Uh-huh.
want to talk about work stress very specifically giving tips, for me, that's more of a Huffington Post story or
Mhm.
Daily Muse story. If I want to get a little bit deeper into the positive psychology or the meditation, and that might go, or answer questions, that'll go to Share Care, which is kind of like a WebMD site. You answer
Mhm.
questions and you give advice. So each of those portals has a mission and a special slant to the message. So that's important if you're going to blog at a lot of different places. If you're only blogging in one place, then pick 1 or 2 days a week and say, okay, on this day I'm going to do a Google Hangout, and on this day I'm going to write about the most recent study or breaking news story that
Mm.
is relevant to my niche. That's how I do it.
Mhm.
That's how it, and
Okay.
I do write a lot, but I don't write. I mean, Forbes now I'm probably down to twice, maybe 3 times a month.
Mm.
Huffington Post, if I do that 2 or 3 times a month, because there's other
Wow.
things. Well, there's other things going on.
That's a lot of writing.
I'm a journalist, and
Right.
I've been writing for like 25 years. So for me, yes, it's a
Mm.
lot of work in the sense that I put an enormous amount of time into my blog posts. It's funny. Someone said, "Well, can't you just like knock something little out?" And I'm just like,
Right.
"I'm a journalist, okay? I can't just like." Can you do that? Can you take the most recent headlines, excuse me, within your niche?
Mm.
Yeah, you could do that. Comment on each
Mm.
of the stories and read. But I'll do that on occasion. It's just not my way of doing things. I used to do a work life update, weekly update of other people's stories. But then Twitter and Facebook got so hot, it was just easier to
Right.
get it out that way.
Right.
So I
Right.
rather have people hear my voice, and I think that that's why they come to my blog. They're not necessarily coming to it for an update. There's so many
Right.
sources of information out there now. It's like, why would I regurgitate everybody else's stuff
Right.
unless I feel really strongly about it? It's possible, but unless you're creating original content, and this is where we get into SEO and what's going on with Google right now. They just changed their algorithm for the umpteenth time. uh, Original content is where it's at.
Mm.
So you can repurpose, and I'll do
Right.
that sometimes. In fact, I'm working on something right now. I did a one-on-one interview with a very famous psychologist, and it's very specific, specifically talks to time down, what we need, that we should work for an hour and a half, take 20 minutes. It's called the
Mm.
ultradian cycle. Ultradian, I don't know if
Mm.
I'm saying that right, and the brain needs that time to kind of relax.
Right.
So now that's a very interesting interview. So I'm going to put
Yeah.
that on my Work Life Nation. But what I'm going to do then is I'm going to take a look at the most recent studies around that or news stories, and then I'll
Mhm.
make it into a different piece for Forbes. Then I
Nice.
might go to Huffington Post, and then I might use a quote from both of those, and then go
Mm.
to Huffington Post and then write something original about how you can, method of how you can use the ultradian cycle to your
Right.
benefit. So
Interesting.
you have to strategize. If you strategize, you can actually use some of the same content for 2 or 3 different
Oh,
posts.
that's
But
awesome.
but it's got to be original though. So you can
Right.
take a
No,
little
that's very
pieces,
helpful.
but you got
Uh-huh.
to stay mostly original if you can. And
Right.
that's how I do it. I'm trying to think what else I am kind of all over the place. I do one-on-ones maybe once a week.
Mhm.
I generally don't do them for an hour like we're doing because it's just very time consuming.
Right.
But I'm careful about how I time those as well.
Right.
Because
Right.
now that we have the visual element, especially because I've worked in television for
Yeah.
a gajillion years, I'm very conscious. Well, everyone's so conscious. All of a sudden now they see our faces. It's a different animal now. So you can't be up all night.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I also want to say I fall off the wagon all the time. I was up at 4 a.m. this
Mm.
morning. So
Wow.
from the night before.
Oh.
Right. Yes. So this is the thing. You have to give yourself permission to
Mm.
take those moments of inspiration. And what
Mm.
the Hungarian psychologist Mihai
Mihai
Csikszentmihalyi,
Csikszentmihalyi.
yeah, talks
Uh-huh.
about in flow. And sometimes
Mm.
you get to that point of motivation and stress, and something triggers this
Mm.
incredible creativity, and you want to jump into that. Even when you're into that, you can still you should still take those breaks for your body. But that
Mm.
moment of flow is can take me through 2 days sometimes.
Mm.
And then of course, I'm paying for it right now, but it's
You're doing
but it's
great.
okay. Well, because I meditated, this morning.
Yeah.
But I don't think we should be so automated, Shalini. I don't think we should be. So everything I've said sounds great on paper. Do I do it
Mm.
all the time? No, but I do stick to it probably about 75% of the time, I have to say.
Wow.
But once I saw, did you see that video of Mihai's video?
No, which one?
There's a TED Talks a couple years old of
Huh.
Mihai Csikszentmihalyi, who he gets into flow and he talks about jazz and how jazz musicians get into this
Right.
flow right with other jazz musicians. You might be
Right.
following chords to a degree, but everyone's kind of going weaving in and out, and you get into this zone of creativity. And
Right.
I think that mindfulness meditation, any kind of meditation, I don't want to just say that specifically because um, I know there's a lot of research on mindfulness and a lot of research on TM,
Mm.
and yoga, but people have their
Mm-hmm.
own ways of meditating and calming down. And
Mm-hmm.
if you can get to that zone and find the way to get to your zone, that can last for quite some time. So,
All right. No, thank you for raising the issue of mindfulness and meditation. And people have such a misconception about meditation or mindfulness being something like sitting on top of a mountain and trying to
full
attain
lotus, right?
nirvana. What's that?
A full lotus, sitting in full lotus, right?
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. And whereas mindfulness is really uh, an approach to life and a way of being that we can really be present in this moment and connected to what's happening internally, to our own thoughts, emotions, and to the people and the environment around us. And we're sort of losing that ability to really connect. And now that my son's gone to college, I'm thinking back all the times I was on my phone or texting or tweeting, and I could have been there with him. So it's making me realize even more how fast time passes, and the life just goes by. And the other piece is, like you mentioned, the experience of flow and creativity and that magic of really living life fully, not just the happy moments, but also the sorrow and sadness. I don't know, did you see that Conan show with C.K. Louis C.K.?
Oh
And he
yeah,
talked
yeah.
about how he hates cell phones. And it was so amazing to see this guy. Those of you who haven't seen it must go and check out this video of Louis C.K. On Conan's show. And he talks about kids losing the ability to really look at a person and communicate because we're always just like texting. And just the disconnect that we have with our emotions as soon as we feel a little bit of emptiness, or we're
Gotta
kind
fill
of
the void. Yep.
yeah, fill the void with
Yeah.
shopping or texting or tweeting, Facebook. And so, and he talks about this situation where he feels that coming and he stays with it, and there's a Bruce Springsteen song going on, and he totally allows himself to feel the sadness. And he stops the car and cries, really cries. And so that's really allowing yourself to feel even the sadness. And that was followed by this immense joy. Because when we stay with whatever and don't resist it, we are really experiencing the juicy parts of life. So I think if there's a way to use social media to feed our creative juices, to allow these connections to happen, without compromising on our real-time connections. I mean, that's what we need to be, or those are the kind of conversations we need to have, and sort of self-reflection we can have. So the other issue that I find challenging is managing our identities. So many people are working in an organization, and so they're representing the identity of that organization, but they may be a thought leader in their own right or part of another volunteering organization. So what do you feel like? Should they be like separate social media identities, or one, or what is your feeling about that?
I want to address that, but I'd like to address what you just said before that, because I think you've
Sure.
made one of the most important points, maybe about this entire hour that we're spending together, and that's about savoring. You know, positive
Mm,
psychology, we talk about the idea of savoring those moments, and there's plenty of studies out there. I was just on a conference call yesterday, and we're talking about a specific study where in a workplace, people were asked to write down three things that went well for them that day.
yeah.
And when they looked at that against the control group of the people who did something completely different, they found that the people who wrote down the things that they were happy about and they were able
Mm,
to reflect on it and savor it for a little bit, like an accomplishment, um, actually were happier and performed better
mm,
over the long run, which I thought was very
wow.
interesting. So, in social media, and I don't think, most people wouldn't say, oh, I'm savoring a social media moment, but, I have to say,
Hmm.
when I got the Forbes distinction last week,
Mm,
at first it was, I didn't even know about it. So someone actually
right.
tweeted it out there and it hit me. It was like, wow, that's really cool. Oh, but wait, what's
Yeah.
this over here? And I went immediately to something else, and I took a step back and I was like, this is so cool. How come I'm not enjoying that in the moment? And I wrote
Right.
back to the person. I said, thank you so much for letting me know I made this Forbes list, and then
Yeah.
I tweeted that out a little bit, did some Facebook, did some engagement on it, but it made me feel
Mm-hmm.
good, and that's the dopamine hit. So that's a
Right.
double-edged sword there, because when we
Right.
get response in social media, we get a dopamine hit and we go back for more of it
Right.
instead of just sitting with it, or sitting with an
Mm.
accomplishment, or sitting with what has gone well for us in our work experience. So I just wanted to
Mm-hmm.
address that really quick, the
Oh, that's
idea of
lovely.
savoring. Yeah, because it releases certain
Yeah.
endorphins, in the brain, endorphins, I'm sorry, neurotransmitters. It triggers things. It makes you feel better over the long time. So now, as far as
Yeah.
identity, I just ran into this literally this week, because my social media identity online with Work Life Nation and the stress management that I do, and the writing that I do is pretty decent. And I also work for a news organization. I anchor for a local TV station. And they came up to me, this just literally just happened. They said, well, we think you should have your own Twitter account for this station. And I just looked at them. They were like, is that okay? I was like, this, it was a very
Mm.
funny conversation. It was like,
Huh.
we really think that this is what needs to happen. I'm like, okay, that's fine. That's fine. Cool. So I think it's a matter of what your, it depends on how you're employed. That's what I think. And if you
Right.
often find, if you see someone who works for a large multinational on their Twitter account, it might say, these comments are mine and are no
Right.
reflection of my multinational corporation. At the
Okay.
same time, you see someone like Richard Branson, and he's obviously
Mm.
tweeting. I mean, he is Virgin, right? He is Virgin.
Right.
He's the brand. So we're not all Richard Branson or Deepak Chopra or Oprah Winfrey.
Right.
So if we have a responsibility, then I personally think you have to separate yourself. I know it's working better for me since I've had my own Facebook page and Twitter account on this new station. I'm interacting with a completely different group of people, and only during the times that I'm working, primarily. Although I might tweet and respond a little
Mm-hmm.
bit here and there, um,
Mm-hmm.
I keep that in a little. I like, compartmentalize, and I keep it kind of in a different place. I think it
Huh.
helps.
So can you explain that a little bit more when you say your Twitter account for the news
I have a
agency
completely
is?
different Twitter account.
So what is that called? Like your other Twitter account that I follow is Judy
It
Martin
would be
8.
Judy Martin. I think it's Judy Martin N12, which is the TV
Okay.
station. Yeah. So that's
Okay.
how I do that. My other one's Judy
Uh-huh.
Martin 8. The only reason it was 8 is because I like the
Taken.
number 8. I
Right.
actually just like the number 8, and I got in early, but the first Judy
Yeah.
Martin grabbed this, and she's never tweeted again. I don't know where she is, somewhere in
Oh.
Canada. I'd love to have a conversation with her if she's out there.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a pain in the neck. But yeah, so I have those two different identities, but I won't tweet as
Uh-huh.
much at home for the TV station because it's just not appropriate to, necessarily mix the two all the time.
Right.
I was
Right.
mixing it, but then the TV station saw desire to have them separate, which is perfectly understandable. So I think
Right.
it's hard though when you have three different jobs or a lot of different clients.
Right.
To manage that. I will say this, depending on what article I'm writing or who I'm working for, my bio will change,
Right.
to reflect. For example, if I'm doing a workshop that's more yoga nidra, yoga meditation, I'll put more of my experience on that end of the game into it. For example, that I'm
Okay.
hospice certified,
Right.
something like that. I'll change my bio a little bit or tweak it a little bit because you can only write, 200, 300 words on that. So that's something I will change. But as far as
Okay.
identities, I don't know. Uh, it's really hard. How do you do it?
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting because I have three overlapping identities, and the underlying
Mm,
theme is definitely mindfulness and
hmm.
technology for positive
Yeah.
change. And so I teach, and I am a mindfulness consultant.
Hmm.
And thirdly, I've co-created a community for people interested in mindfulness called Mindful Universe.
Hmm.
And so the messages that I send out don't always sort of overlap. When I'm talking more about social media, that's more for my class or academic situation. Unless it's mindful social media, then that's
Hmm.
relevant to the other two identities. So and since I'm working on alone, it's hard for me to have multiple Twitter, LinkedIn, and so
That's
I've sort
hard to
of kept,
do. Yeah.
yeah, so I've kept one identity, but I'm selective and purposeful in what I share with
Hmm.
uh, which channels. So on LinkedIn, it's generally more professional, mindfulness in
Hmm.
business, neuroscience, those kind of
Hmm.
things. And Twitter can be, uh, is more open because it's more of who I am as a person, and which is
Hmm.
sort of pretty integrated in the sense that what I'm teaching people how to be mindful in business is also what I aspire to be in my own personal life. So I don't mind sharing that with people on Twitter. And then Facebook, the page is for the community, so the mindfulness community. So that's more geared towards that. And the other Facebook is more, again, open, friends, family.
Hmm.
So I think I've been able to do that, but sometimes I struggle with the bios. Like, what do I write here? And then, so again, thinking about who is the target audience for that
Hmm.
particular forum, and what is the purpose. So based on that, I'll highlight more of my
Hmm.
academic background or more of my mindfulness training, or so. But it's interesting, and certainly if I was working in an organization, I'm sure I would have faced other kind of challenges as you talked about with your
Hmm.
news channel. So we're sort of heading towards close. I was wondering if Ariel and Gen had questions. Does anyone have any questions at this point for Judy based on what we've talked so far?
Yeah, I think I'll add a question. All the mindfulness activities in mind and trying to maintain the appropriate work-life balance. What would you say is a good approach to um, making sure that the updates that you provide, the information you provide, is read by your target audience? And you mentioned the lifespan of a tweet is so short,
Hmm.
and same with Facebook. How do you make sure that you are tweeting enough, or there's enough substance to it to get out there and be read by the people that you want it to reach?
Um, I'm going to address the substance question first, and that is that be careful about what you tweet and what you
Hmm.
Facebook because the more you tweet, if people respond to it and then they see that it's a lousy tweet or pointing to a link that is poor information, and you're just kind of looking to retweet to get more followers or what have you. I'm not saying you specifically, but I definitely got caught in this where I got
Hmm.
excited that I saw people retweeting something in workshops. Oh, I'm just going to hit retweet. No, not so much. I'm definitely going to look at the material first. So very
Hmm.
important to do that because that impacts your brand and reputation. So I just wanted to make that point because I think it's super important. Um, as far as what was the I'm sorry, what was the first question? I'm sorry, I apologize. Is Ken there?
Oh, sorry. No, I think you hit it. Really, I was just wondering about. Well, I
You
guess
had another part to that, and I just forgot what
the
it
third
was.
part is really just around how you hit the target audiences that you
Hmm
want. So,
I
assuming that what you
mhm.
tweet is relevant, how do you hit the people you want to hit?
The two most important things is one, find out when your niche audience is on
Mm.
Twitter and on Facebook. Like, I noticed that with my community, my workplace community, a lot of HR people, they will go on first thing in the morning at like between 8 and 9 o'clock before they get into their day, even 7 to 9. And I know that when I'm in that realm with them, I might be able to real time communicate with them. So that's one thing, is to, you know, kind of take a look at your audience and niche. When are they tweeting the most as real people? So in other words, interacting, not just throwing tweets out there. Um, the second thing to keep in mind is that it's almost impossible. That
Mm.
you're kind of throwing spaghetti against the wall to a degree. But actually, the second thing I really want to mention is something I mentioned earlier, and that is, if there is a Twitter chat or a conference going on, they're using a specific hashtag, then
Mm.
that's a good time to interact with those people. They might be watching someone speak, and you can interact with them on that level, and they will see your tweet a lot more frequently. So that Twitter chats, going in when you know that your audience is generally tweeting because they're looking around and snooping around before they get into their workday, during lunchtime, late in the afternoon, 3:30
Mm.
is a great time. I will tell you this:
Mm.
3:30 is the lull. That is the lull in the
Really?
afternoon. Oh, absolutely. People have had lunch. They come back from lunch. They're
Hmm.
exhausted. They try to get into work. They get a little bit of work done, and then it's like, oh, I need a break. I'm going to go out for a cigarette or a walk.
Right.
Oh, let me check Twitter or Facebook. That's often a good time to interact with people, oddly enough.
Right.
And then the conferences and the Twitter chats. So that's what I would add.
Yeah, and I think I would add to that. Again, kind of echoing what Judy just said, find out where your audience is, and it could be beyond just Twitter and LinkedIn or Facebook.
Hmm
Like there are professional forums, and for instance, I have this really cool
Yeah.
story of doing this online webinar for businesses on mindfulness, and it was recorded. So I took the recording and the slides for that um, webinar, and I posted it on SlideShare. And so SlideShare got picked up by a journalist who was looking for mindfulness in business, and she interviewed me. So that came out in the Workforce Journal, which is like a primary journal for
Yeah.
management HR people. And I had this huge big company from Sweden contact me on LinkedIn that
hmm
we read your interview and we're interested in your work. So it's really cool how, all these different pieces, it's almost like magic
Yeah,
sometimes,
I swear it is. I
right?
I have
How,
very similar stories, actually. Yeah. It's interesting.
yes. So definitely find out if there are any professional forums. Like if you're in HR, find out what are the forums where the people that you're speaking to are, if there's a forum there, so you can answer people's questions and build that reputation. So while you're engaging in conversation, and in parallel perhaps have a blog or something that you're writing on the subject that you can always refer people in that forum back to and answering questions. And then of course Twitter is kind of, you're broadcasting the message out in the world, and all of that is automatically enhancing your Google searchability and presence.
Absolutely. This actually, the Google Hangout, is, since I started doing Google Hangout, for whatever reason, I went up
Uh-huh.
a notch, like quite a bit. Well,
Really?
because it's Google, right? It's the top search. So it's like, oh, you're using our product? We like you. So I
That's
was really doing
awesome.
a lot of that. The other thing I wanted to
Right.
add to what you said is something that goes way back, something that was shared with me by Dan Schobel and Steve
Hmm.
Rubel years ago, and that's that. Find the blogs, the people who you really want to communicate with. Go to their
Hmm.
blogs, read those blogs, and comment on those blogs. I literally take
Right.
time every week And I will go to at least 3 blogs a week, and I work this into my schedule too. And I actually mark this down because I don't want to keep repeating. And I'll go to the people who I really appreciate and respect, and I'll read that post or a post that looks interesting to me, and I will comment on it. And it's not necessarily about, oh yeah, well I wrote about this last week, but
Right.
gee, this is, I'm really interested in what you have to say, and be authentic about it, because that is also what gets you followers. And in relation to what
Right.
you just said, Shalini, I wrote a post for Huffington, oh gosh, it's got to be 3 months ago, and this
Mhm.
week I got a call from a university in Canada. They said, hey,
Wow.
we're working on this app, and we have a feeling that you're going to be able to guide us a little bit. Out of nowhere. Out of nowhere. So,
Yay!
yeah, it's kind of, well, whether it works out or not, I don't know. But as you said, the point is that if you are just being authentic and communicating your message and staying on
Right.
message, people will find you. And that's what the new world is really about, people being able to find you. It's on demand and being foundable. So, or
Right.
findable. Yeah.
Yeah. Did that answer some of your question? And it's an ongoing journey. You're going to learn and evolve as you grow. But
Yeah, that was super helpful. Yeah, no, I really appreciate it. That's good.
great. So let's see if there's anything else we could. There's so much that could be talked about in this particular on this particular subject. I'm just thinking that maybe managing the boundaries of information,
Mm-hmm.
because when I was sharing my slides, which I did for a corporate setting on SlideShare, there was that issue of, well, that's a program I worked so hard to create, and then the slides, and now I'm just going to give it away. So to me, that makes natural sense, because why people are hiring me is not just the slides per se, but the energy I bring and
Mm-hmm.
the exercises within. So to me, it's not so much of an issue, but I hear that a lot from people saying, well, how much information do you share and how much do you
Mm-hmm.
kind of charge for?
That is one of the biggest questions. But I'll say
Mm,
this. How I think that life right now, in the direction that we're moving, is about
mm,
passive income to a great degree,
mm,
because we can't be everywhere all the time. That being said, so it's great to have some products. That being
mm,
said, generally, the more of a message that you're sending out, the more reputable you are in sending out your message, the higher your fee for speaking, right?
mm,
So the more information you send out there,
mm-hmm.
the more the more credibility you gain.
Right.
So, in fact, I was just working on something recently, and I said, "Well, gee, maybe I could charge for this." And my assistant said, "You know what? Just give it away.
Wow.
Just give it away. Have this, sell this product. I have a meditation CD. Sell that,
Right.
but give this other
Right.
stuff away, because ultimately it's going to be about speaking and doing the corporate workshops, right?" And I said, "Yeah, yeah, it is." Still, you can have a little bit of a balance with that. I'm working on some products right now because I'd like them to live on my website, and others. I've been actually working on a slide share based on my workshop, but I had
Uh-huh.
this like, oh, I don't want to give it away. What if they see? La, la, la. But you know
Right.
what? Honestly, everyone's doing the same stuff. I mean, really? Mindfulness has been out there a long time, and dealing with work
Mm,
stress, talking about cortisol and the fight or flight syndrome and the parasympathetic nervous system. I mean,
right.
hello,
Uh,
so
uh,
ultimately it's your voice, right? It's going to be your
right.
lens and your voice that they want and that they buy
Mm-hmm.
into,
Right.
not just the information. It's you, and that's the brand you, the brand me, that Dan
Hmm.
Chaubel talks about, and that all the real old marketing gurus speak about. It's brand you, right?
Right.
So
Absolutely. So before we end, maybe taking a deep, purposeful breath.
I know, right? Into the
Ah,
pit of your
and
belly. Yes, I get it.
yes. Ah, and can I recommend everyone should go and watch a video that you made that I totally loved the music and the production, and there's some really interesting facts in it. It's called
Mhm.
Take a Breath in the Work-Life Merge, and that incidentally is how I came up with the title for today's talk. And if you'd like to just share what is your preferred mode of communication if other students watch this and they had questions for you and follow up?
Anyone watching this can just really email info@judymartinspeaks.com. Actually, Judy@judymartinspeaks.com. I don't know how many people are watching this. I could have just thrown myself off a cliff, but we'll see. Yeah, no, I mean, they could just email me. That's fine, and it will get to me.
Okay, and do you prefer some questions that are more general to be on Twitter, maybe, so more people can benefit, or do you prefer an email?
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter to me.
Okay.
You know, I plan time for that, for my responses, and that's another thing. Checking emails like a whole nother world, but some people say the email is going to be dead anyway. Twitter is the best way. I would say Twitter is the best way to catch my attention and for me to respond to something. Yes.
Right. We know you go to LinkedIn only twice a week, so we're not going to send you a message.
I really do, because it just kind of works. It kind of works that way. For me, you know, I'm a voyeur on LinkedIn. I do communicate a little bit, but I think actually we probably all need to spend more time there, because I think the content is actually a better source for content. I do. I think it offers better content. So.
Great.
Well, thanks.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Judy, for taking out time from your really busy and wonderful life, and wishing you all the success in your new products and books. Keep us informed, and I'll share it out with my class. And again, thank you.
All right. Thank you. Have a good one. Take care, folks. Bye.
Thanks, guys, for coming.